Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 7 of Psych. We are your hosts, Matthew.
And Barb.
If you're enjoying the show, please remember to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. We're available on YouTube, Facebook, Reddit. All the links are in the descriptions. On YouTube, we do have a little animated video version of it, so you're not just
It's
going to be
so
looking
cute.
at a black screen.
So cute.
So, yeah, thank you for listening and coming back and hopefully sharing it with your friends who are also Psych fans.
Yes.
Barb, do we have any news?
Yes, well, we always like to give a nice shout out to the official Psych Fanatics of Facebook group. Many of our listeners are part of this group, and we just always appreciate that support. And, especially from the leader of that group, Mark. It's a great group.
Oh,
We
we also do have some
have
the new fans from the Reddit group.
Oh,
Just the
yes, yes,
subreddit,
yes.
just Psych.
Yes. Shout out to them as well. We love that. Love the support. We have some fan emails, Matt. I'm always excited to get fan emails. So I'm going to give this first one a read. And this one is from another Barbara. She's got the accent on her name. So I'm going to give it a go at Barbara because that was my name in Spanish class. So yay. Anyway,
All right.
look, for all you fellow people who remember high school Spanish class, even though you're like, been out of it for like 30 years, but whatever. Anyway, her email says, "Hello. I discovered this podcast a couple weeks ago, and it has been great content for my Tuesday commutes. Now, watching the episode of the next podcast is part of my Monday night routine, so it's fresh in my mind. I watched Psych casually when it was airing, but I rediscovered it during the pandemic. I had just moved from Brazil to Canada alone, and Psych was a huge part of keeping my mental health intact during that time, and for that, I'll cherish it forever. I lost count of how many times I watched it in the past year and a half. As a 90s baby, I do appreciate Barb breaking down all the 80s references I don't get. And I know
I'm
Matthew
the same
understands.
way. I'm the same way. Yeah. I know it's a
And
reference. I just don't know what it's to.
and for the question you guys had last week, the first time Sean struggles with a verb is in Poker, I Barely Know Her. And it's a little bit of an exchange back and forth between Sean and Gus. Sean says, "But my arms are slenderer." And Gus says, "What?" And Sean says, "Slenderer." Gus says, "Skinnier." Sean says, "Yes." It is one of my favorite bits, and I love that it even made it into a song in the musical. I love how Barb talks about every single one of Sean and Juliet's little flirty interactions because honestly, same. They are ridiculously adorable. Keep up the great work, guys. I can't wait for seasons 3 and 4. They have some of my 5 pineapple episodes. Suck it, Barbara. I love how she ended it. Suck it.
Yep. That's awesome. Thank you for
Yes.
messaging in, Barbara. Did I say that? No, maybe? No, I don't know. But thanks for messaging in. Actually, I've never seen the musical, so I do not know that reference. I really should see it. Maybe that'll be part of
Wow.
a thing. It'll be my first viewing is when we get to it chronologically. So, but I just didn't like music,
Okay.
so I kind of
I
skipped.
know you all your life, and I'm surprised that you haven't seen the musical. That is really shocking me right
I'm
now.
not a big fan of musicals, but I will definitely give it a watch just because. It's one of those things that like I wasn't interested at the time, and then I forgot about it, and then it just never came up.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny. Anyway,
But nope, yeah, thank you for giving us that answer. Yeah, I
yes.
definitely 100% think she's correct. I think it was Slenderer. I think that was the first time we had that.
hmm
So yeah, that's awesome. I
I
actually have
love
another person who messaged
Well,
in.
let me
Oh,
just say first, I love that she mentioned how she was watching it during the pandemic because my daughter and I did the
oh
same
yeah.
thing. And and remember USA even put us
Oh yeah.
marathon on.
Marathon. Yeah, I think they did it
Yes, it
at
was
least
like
twice.
comedy relief for everybody during that time because the pandemic had just started. It was amazing. So we have that in common
Yeah,
too.
nothing political. There's nothing about like
Yeah,
masks. There's none of that stuff. It was just a feel good
just
show.
funny, just funny. And
I
I
think they
like
did it
we
with Monk
see
too.
we have the same name and the same mindset. I love it. Love it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you guys are on point there. Yeah.
that's right. All right, Matt, what do you have?
I got actually a reoccurring one. This one is another one from Scully.
Okay.
So, well, actually, it's Mary, but it says Scully. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
from Mary,
Okay.
and she messaged it in. I think this one came in from the after the release of the Down the Stretch Comes Murder. Because it
Yes.
says, I just finished this week's podcast and I wanted to ask this. Do you think Lassiter possibly got to like horses when he spent time in Old Sonora? I know this episode is a ways off, but it came to me while listening to the podcast. Great show as always. P.S. I also had a pair of kangaroos.
I loved that PS.
Yeah, that is a good callback. But
It was so good.
just for anybody who doesn't remember, there was a point in the episode. It was in the beginning part. We see Lassiter in that episode, like secretly feed a horse some like some
A
carrots or
carrot.
something.
Yeah.
And I brought it up as like I was like I don't recall them ever doing anything with that in that episode or in like later in the seasons where he has like this secret love of horses. So it was kind of a weird detail they put in there. And actually, I think that's a super valid point because in that old Sonora episode,
Mhm.
we find out that Binky Lassiter, as a kid, his mom would literally just drop him off there, and he would just spend all of his time there. And he got really close with the guy who owns the place, kind of like a father figure to him. And they had a bunch of horses there, and they were like legit old timey there. So that's actually a very possibly a connection that even if they don't mention it, seems completely valid. So nice call, Mary. I never thought of that.
Yeah. I didn't either.
Yeah, that was a good fan theory. I like it.
Yeah. I like it. I really, really am enjoying these emails, you guys.
Yep. If anybody has any questions or anything, definitely just check it out. In the comments is the email address. I've also been doing something lately on Reddit, kind of sporadically, not on any set schedule. I've been doing kind of like trivia questions where I'll post a screenshot and then I'll ask like, what did he just say in this scene, or what happened in this scene, or just some sort of question to see if you have that, like if you've seen the show enough, you'll see this clip and there's something distinct about this image that
Mhm.
will most likely remind you of what the answer is. A lot of people have been liking it. It gets lots of upvotes whenever I do it. So if you guys do like a little bit of psych trivia, follow us and check it out occasionally.
I will say too, they're super specific and people are like on it. It's
Oh yeah,
amazing. It's
yeah.
amazing.
Some people, it kind of shocks me how quickly they just remember it. I mean, I get it's
Yeah.
always possible they're looking it up, but hopefully they're in the good spirit of the trivia there.
Right. Right. So let's talk about this week's episode, Matt. This is an episode titled If You're So Smart, Then Why Are You Dead? It originally aired on August 24th, 2007. It was written by Steve Franks, Anupam Nigam, and Andy Berman, and directed by Arlene Sanford. This is the first episode directed by Arlene Sanford, or a woman, I believe, for that matter. And she's directed a very long list of shows. This was the only episode of Psych that she directed, but her directing career started in 1985. She started off with shows like Designing Women and The Wonder Years, Coach, Friends, which we all love, and even the movie A Very Brady Sequel, which I'm kind of a dork who like grew up on the Brady Bunch and I loved those movies. The West Wing, Gilmore Girls, Ally McBeal, Boston Public, Monk, Desperate Housewives, Nashville Bones, and Pretty Little Liars are also on her list of directorial accomplishments. I don't know. She directed
Directorial,
episodes on, I don't know.
directorial,
She directed, let's
directorial.
just say
You missed
she
it.
directed. I see what you did there. I've heard it both ways. She she has directed a lot of series television. So anyway, but the only episode of Psych that she ever did. So what about a synopsis, Matt? What do you got?
This one was a little tougher to summarize just because of how many different points it went on, but
Mhm.
I will do my best.
Okay.
So, Sean and Gus get a tip that someone might be murdered in a few days at a local prep school. They take the case, but not for the reasons you would suspect. Their tip is coming from kids that attend the school, and they have almost no information to work with, so they are not too sure that there is really even a case. But they can't pass up the opportunity to go back to high school. At the station, Lassiter makes Juliet lead on the same case, and we get to see Juliet in charge. However, they are not working together on this case.
But they're both working on it.
Yep.
So, interesting.
Although, yeah,
Mm,
so there's more of an explanation in it. This one, I don't know. I guess we'll get to the thoughts and opinions on this one at the end.
okay.
But there
Yeah.
are the several good scenes in it, and I really like the vibe of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just yeah. Well, all right. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of
Okay,
myself.
wait for that. You
Episode
cannot give
breakdown.
pineapple ratings yet, Matt.
Yes. Yep. Episode
Oh
breakdown
my
starts
gosh.
now.
All right. We start with young Sean and Henry playing some chess. Did you
Yes.
Yeah, did you catch that immediately? I know you have some things to say about this
Mhm.
particular scene too, but almost immediately you get Sean and Henry going back and forth, and Henry right away is like, "Sean, when you become a cop,
Yep.
you need
I
to have
have that one on my
strategy."
notes too.
And I was
Look,
like,
he
"Wow."
literally says, "Look, when you are on the force, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
take in huge amounts of information." And I was like, "There's that pressure, Henry planning his life." But
Right,
I did note,
like, it was just a automatic assumption that he's gonna be a cop and that's it.
yeah,
I don't
but
think
I
I
did note
ever
here,
recall hearing, though, little Sean in any of the flashbacks say he wanted to become a cop. I never remember that. Do you remember that ever?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But
I
it
don't know.
didn't seem like he had a problem with it. Like in
Okay.
this one, just by
Yeah.
looking at him, it could have been just an oversight because maybe they didn't tell Liam to think about it that way. But it didn't seem like young Sean had a problem with it though when he said it. I didn't see any
Yeah.
eye rolling or anything like that. So maybe he wasn't opposed to it. I did also want to mention that I love the beginning part whenever he's trying to get Sean to take chess seriously, because
Mhm.
Sean is like pretending like he doesn't remember the pieces, and he's like, "I named the knight Dwight," and
Mhm.
then he had another one that I never heard correctly, but the bishop he called B.A. Baracus. I always
Mhm.
thought he said the Abaracus, and I had no idea what that was.
Oh,
But
no, B.A.
B.A.
Baracus.
Baracus is a reference, which I have noted for
Yes.
later.
Yeah.
Um, then shortly afterwards, we are in the real time, 2 minutes, 38 seconds in. This is after the introduction song. We're introduced to Shockley and Goddard, who Sean says it as Goddard, but it's
Well, wait,
Goddard.
wait, wait. Can we back up just a minute? Because the first scene actually with them is in the restaurant with the girl, and Sean has taken another case on of telling a girl whether or not her boyfriend is seeing someone else. And it's the same girl played this role, Crystal Lowe, as the girl who played Eden in the last episode of
Yes,
season 1
that's why she looks so
of
familiar.
Scary Sherry. Yes, Bianca's Scary Sherry, Bianca's Toast. She played Eden in that episode, and now she's back in another role. So I thought
She
that
does
was
look
pretty
more mature in
interesting
this one, though.
too.
So yeah,
Yeah,
they did make her look different enough.
yeah. Well, and she has gone on now. Wow, she does tons of Hallmark stuff now. So she's in a lot of my favorite Hallmark movies. But anyway, I just like that was the first scene. So then Gus was upset with Sean about he's like, if you're gonna take all these kind of cases
The cheating
of
spouse
these,
ones.
yeah, then you're gonna have to do it without me. And that's when we learned about this new case that Sean has a kind of a lead into. And then
Yeah,
we
so they
introduced
are
to
back to
Shockley and
the
Goddard.
psych office, and they're surprised that their appointment they had was with two children, like the 15 years old. We have Shockley, who's played by Callum Worthy, and Goddard, who's played by Jeffrey Tedmore. And these, it's worth saying their names because they are like sub characters in this, and we see them throughout the entire episode, and they do have
Mhm.
several lines. So we do take note of these characters, and they are interesting. One thing I did like about this episode was the youthfulness. It brought a certain life to the show that was, abnormal. There's not usually that many kids on it, so I did like that. And the kids were interesting because they were, super smart. Um, uh, Gus is bummed out though because he thought he was going to get a real case, and those hopes and dreams kind of went away when he saw
Oh,
the
yeah, the
evidence.
looks on their on both of them, the looks on
Oh
their
yeah, yeah,
faces, they
Sean
were
too.
both like, "Seriously?"
Hmm.
Like, "I just told him I have a good case," and, like, Sean was like, "I just told him I had a good case, and their kids, and Gus was like, "Really, Sean?" I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't
But
happy.
the kids believe that somebody at their school has been murdered and another person is going to be murdered in 2 days, but they don't know anything else. They don't know who it is, who's gonna be murdered, who was murdered previously, they know nothing.
They
Many of the
essentially just know that
students.
they heard a phone call.
Right, they were, listening in on they were trying to hack into a receiver, and then they ended up picking up a phone call, and they know that it was somewhere nearby because of the signal range of the receiver, but they don't know anything else.
And there was a gravelly voice.
Yeah, they know what time they heard it at and that it was on campus.
Oh, and
So,
Muriel.
that's it.
Muriel.
Um, Another thing I thought was interesting about this is that the names sounded familiar. Many of the students in this episode, as well as well, not just the students, many of the characters in the episode are named after famous scientists. William Bradford Shockley was physicist and an inventor with a Nobel Prize. Goddard was a rocket scientist. Later on, we meet a character named Han, is a chemist who, in real life, Han is a chemist who discovered nuclear fission. So
That
I
is
thought that was
very
cool.
cool, Matt.
And there's actually a few other like smart stuff that they do for like references.
That
One
is
of them I
very cool.
identified that I remembered from my chemistry class in high school. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm curious how many other people caught it.
Well, I can guarantee you that I didn't. I never
Um,
took chemistry, so you know what? It would not be me that had got that. So I'm anxious to hear that when we get to it. Really good
yeah.
catch with all the scientist names. I
Mhm.
never would have thought of that. Anyway,
Well, Shockley
perfect.
sounded unique, so I thought that might be something. And then Goddard,
Mhm.
I know from Jimmy Neutron. I know that he named his
Oh,
dog after a
yes,
physicist and an
Goddard.
inventor. So Goddard, I knew like instinctively, like, oh, that's an inventor and a physicist. Maybe Shockley is also, yeah. So,
Brief moment of, like, how much do we love Jimmy Neutron?
oh, so
Love that
good.
show.
It's such
Yeah,
a great
it's one of
kids
the
show,
best
man.
cartoons ever. Love that
Oh,
show. Anyway,
mm,
yeah, at 48, I would still watch Jimmy Neutron. Love it.
yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I love
48.
how at the end of talking to these kids, what did you don't laugh at my age, Matthew. Don't laugh at my age. I have taught you lots of things in your life. Don't laugh at
Mm,
my age.
yep. Hmm.
Um, okay. So I liked the way that at the end of talking to these kids, they both looked at each other and they're like, "We're taking this case. You want to take this case?"
Yeah.
And then Sean's like, "Yeah, I want to go back to high school undercover. Like that's gonna be cool."
Well, you kind of got a little bit ahead. So the kids explained, and they go into detail that they attend Meitner School for Gifted Students, and that's when Gus's ears perk up in telling Sean that the kids are geniuses. Like he recognizes that school name and knows that these kids are geniuses. They
But
also
Sean doesn't
mention,
know why, so that's why they're so shocked with each other
right, right. We
when
just
they
know that
right.
Gus's ears perked up when he heard that. Mm.
Yes.
So yeah, they were both shocked that they were both interested in taking the
Mhm.
case.
Yes.
Ironically, neither one for the purposes of actually catching a murderer.
Right. They just have their own, you know,
Yep.
their own agendas. But at 6 minutes, 20 seconds, we're back at the station now. Jules points out to Lassie that it's their anniversary, and Jules wants to be primary on a case. She's already got the okay from the chief, and Lassie assigns her a case, and he's given her all these, like, really random, just things that seem
Like
very
lightweight.
insignificant, you know?
Yeah, the
And
training wheels.
yeah, and he says to her, "There are no small cases, only small detectives."
Mhm. That is lesson number 1
Of
of
many.
several that we get through the episode, and I've notated all of them.
Yes, me too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's funny.
I wanted to mention here, so we're at about 7 minutes, 10 seconds. Lassiter's arm is still in the cast, or not
Mhm.
the cast, the sling from last episode. And I did look this up. While the cause of Lassiter's injury is never revealed, the show's production blog states that actor Timothy Omenson broke his collarbone while mountain biking to work. So it's an
Huh.
IRL injury that they carried over, and they literally just completely ignored.
Wow.
Well, not completely. They did say it.
They
They just
addressed
never
it.
gave up on a reason, and then they don't address it
Right.
at all in this episode. So I thought that's kind of funny. 7 minutes, 30 seconds in, Laster gives Juliet the same case as the guys and makes it a challenge. We're at 8 minutes, 40 seconds now. The guys go to the school to investigate, and the kids make fun of Sean for being too old to pass off as a high schooler. They had this funny quote there. Sean like tries to do like his young look, and then they're like crow's feet. They say he has crow's feet, and they're like, "Do you squint or make funny faces a lot?" And Gus has like a little giggle.
I'm just gonna add that I didn't appreciate the talk about crow's feet.
I thought it was funny that the kids essentially roasted him, and then Gus, he's like, "Oh man, they hit it right on the head." So their initial thing was Sean was like, "We gotta go in there and we gotta do this 21 Jump Street style," and he's like, "I'll just like lower my voice a little bit. I'll shave my face more. I'll do my hair flat." Like he was thinking that, and no, that's not a possibility. Sean
It
does not
is
look like
sort
a
of
high schooler.
funny, though, about how that theme goes full circle in this episode.
Yes. There's a lot
Yeah,
of tie-ins. Like, yeah, you
without
mentioned that
saying
before. There's lots of
a
tie-ins.
lot,
Mhm.
yeah. There a lot of things in this episode that sort of do that.
Gus had a completely different route. He
I
had
loved
no
Gus's.
intention of going undercover, and I remember this all. I would say this every time this episode comes up. So Gus, his plan was to be documentarians for a film, Geniuses in the mix. And the way he says it, he like puts his fingers together and pulls it apart, like in the mix.
I did love his. I kinda wish they had gone with his, but the kids were like, "We've got it already.
Yeah, they set
We've
it
done
up.
this." Yeah.
They set him up as a guest instructor for a paranormal studies class. The principal tells him C. Everett Koop was distraught whenever he didn't get chosen to be the guest. I had to look that up. And C. Everett Koop was an American pediatric surgeon for the public health administrator. He was the vice admiral in the Public Health Service Corps, and he served as the 13th Surgeon General of the United States under
Mm,
President Ronald Reagan
for
from
almost 10
1982
years.
to 1989.
Mhm.
So I thought that was funny that like this school is that important that a past surgeon general was upset that he didn't get picked. So
And that Sean filled in for him.
yes, which
Hmm.
okay.
I mean, it just, yeah, it was interesting.
hmm
Interesting.
They also did in this scene about 9 minutes 20 seconds in. They emphasized the kids on their recess break in the library, and I
Mhm.
thought it was kind of hilarious that they just gave all of the kids the biggest books they could find. They were either
Yeah.
super like thick or like super large books that
Mhm.
took up like a huge chunk of the table or were really hard to carry. I thought that was funny. Give them big books to make them look smart.
Right.
I also had to mention in this one that the principal is played by Alan
He's the
Lysel.
headmaster.
The headmaster, I'm sorry, it's a fancy school,
Right,
um,
right.
was another supporting actor that was in Stargate SG-1. The list is getting extensive. It's definitely showing that they filmed Stargate in Canada, most likely.
Yes, it filmed in Vancouver.
Mm,
So at 9:44, Gus is trying to get some information here. It's all becoming a little bit clearer about why Gus really wanted to take this case.
yeah,
He asks the headmaster if a person can see their own application file. And you're really getting a sense that Gus has an issue. And we do find out that he applied there and thought that he didn't get in, like he didn't get in.
yeah, yeah. He was
Mhm.
uh, stuck going to public school with Sean.
Right.
9 minutes 50 seconds in. Um, we run into Lassie and Juliet in the like front office of the school. Sean and Gus just got there and they were kind of like hiding out, and then they pop up and they get
Mhm.
their little intro scene.
This is where we get a lot more Lassie lessons. We get like 3 of them here at once. Lesson number 2, cops don't wait in line even at Starbucks. Lesson number 3, don't say please, don't say thank you, and definitely don't say hi. Spirit Squad I love this one. Spirit Squad auditions were over 10 years ago. You're an authority figure, act like it. And
hmm
lesson number 4, don't quote cornpone country bumpkin sayings to your commanding officer.
Yeah. Yeah, Juliet asks, "How many lessons are there?" And Lasser's like, 638. Yeah,
Right.
and they're done with 4 of them now. So, it's gonna be a long episode.
It was a
Um,
lot. It reminded me of NCIS. I don't know if you've ever watched that show,
yeah,
but
Gibbs.
yeah, Gibbs has all the rules and, like, they're just it's confusing, but anyway, I don't know if they took it from that or what, but it was funny.
Mhm. But, when Sean and Gus, make their introduction, they kinda pop up from behind the counter and I like as if they worked there. But, they mention Lassie that they sent Juliet flowers because they heard that, Lassie died or something, that they got a letter that from the police officers that Lassie died, and it turns out that they were talking about Lassie 3, who was a police dog. Gus mentions the similarities between them, and he's like, "From the obit, the similarities were uncanny. Strong, dedicated, loyal." And then that's when Sean jumps in. Bouts of ringworm, expressive eyes, goes like this when he poops, and then he like kicks his hands back. But yeah, no, Gus was on point. I love it when Gus gets a zinger in on Lassie. I just find it so much funnier when Gus gets one in because it's kind of shocking, I guess.
It's
But
unexpected.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's quick too. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah.
when I read the obit, the traits were uncanny." But Lassiter then nudges Juliet, and Juliet tells off the guys. And she's like, "Don't get in our way, Spencer." And then she gives like this begrudging look at Sean, like with a little
Yes.
like half nod or like a wink or something to let
Like,
her
I
know,
didn't
"I'm
really
sorry."
wanna be like that to you. Like,
Yeah,
she
I
just
also notated that Barb would love this scene
I
because
saw that. Yes, I
Juliet is
love
being nice to to Sean.
yeah, she does it again later in the episode too, I haven't noted.
Well, the guys start their investigation. We do not work with the police officers this time. Juliet and Lassiter are doing their own investigation, and the guys are doing their own. So
Mhm.
they start their investigation, looking around the school, and they get the idea that the janitor has access overnight, and as long as if he has a dark in or not a dark, a deep and gravelly voice, then he is suspect numero uno.
So as they're walking up to him, did you get what they said? Because it was a reference in and of itself. You may have gotten this because I know you like the movie that it came from. Sean looks at Gus and he's like, "Who's the eyes and the ears of this school?" That is totally a Breakfast Club reference right there. The
Oh, I don't remember that.
janitor comes into the detention and tells them, you he starts making fun of them. "How does one become a janitor?" All that, and he's like, "You might think that, but I'm the eyes and ears of this school. I
I did
see
not catch that.
everything." Yeah, that was totally Breakfast
Hmm.
Club. Anyway,
But
alright,
this
go on.
janitor does not have a deep and gravelly voice. It sounds like he was trapped in a room filled with helium, so they know it was not him. However,
Yes.
he does have he is does seem to be hiding something, and they get it out of him that that night, the night that they were that the phone call happened. He found a gold pin after hours in the hallway. He cleaned the hall, came back later, and the pin was there, and he put it in the lost and found. He was kind of hiding it because he didn't want anybody to claim it because then he would get it.
In 2 weeks, if no one claims it, it's mine.
Right. And they go and they find it, and the pin has essentially like a math equation on it. Um, and it's kind of funny because the equation looks like it says like sexy. Like I don't remember what the equation, the formula was, but it's a calculus term. And they find out then that there are 18 math teachers in total that work at the school. So again, school for geniuses.
Mhm. So now they gotta find this math teacher.
Right, and they got to find the right one too. So
Right.
14:30, the guys end up heading over to the teachers' lounge. They figured that'd be the first place where they can, really get to know somebody. And I thought this was a really funny scene because they see they kind of Sean does his little Rain Man thing and sees around the room and figures out which teachers are in the room. And he lands on the gym teacher and he says, the gym teacher will probably be able to help us more. And they walk over there. Sean casually like sits down in the chair next to him and puts his feet on the table. Gus does he was trying to be cool,
What
but he ends up
what
like he slides across the table. He slides too far, falls off the table, then jumps up real quick and sits on the table,
I just
trying
could
to
not
cover it
figure
up.
out what he was trying to do there. Like, why
It was
why?
weird, but it was funny at the same time. He just slid right off the
Yeah.
table, and Sean pretended like nothing happened. But if you look at the teacher's face, he's like,
He's
"What is going on?
what?
Why are these people sitting next to me?"
Mm.
I really love the teacher's face because even through his like the things he talks about and how he talks, he seems just like beat. He's a gym teacher at this
Well,
like
I
school
love
filled
his
with like nerds
explanation
essentially.
later. I like his explanation later about why.
Yeah.
'Cause
Mhm.
or I think it
But
actually
he
happens in this
seems just
he's
beat.
like, "I start my day every day with 300 excuses from kids about why," and he says,
Like
like, "When I
doctor's notes,
threw
yeah.
a ball" yeah, when I threw a ball at a kid once and
I think
something
that's in the car
happened and
later.
he's getting sued. I mean, like,
But
yeah,
yeah.
but, like, can you imagine being a gym teacher at a school where
Yeah, the
no one is athletic?
mhm. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
that would definitely be rough, but I guess easy, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
But in this, they find out that Professor Han is the remedial math teacher, for calculus. And they also
Yeah.
find out that he is the carpool, or he's in the teacher's carpool, which this week the gym teacher is driving for. So the guys get in on that so that they have a little meeting with him.
Mhm.
The gym teacher is also played by Craig Veroni, and he also plays a character in Stargate Atlantis, which, just saying, Stargate's awesome. I don't really know how this actor being a part of it indicates that, but um, I love Stargate. 15 minutes in, Sean gives Han his pin back. This is when they're in the car on the way home, and he has a little comment about he has like a tie-in, which I think I notated down in the references later on about like the too sexy song. Um, but Han takes the pin, which gives them confirmation that it's his and that he lost it. His
Mhm.
voice is also deep and gravelly, like the two kids said, Shockley and Goddard. And he missed the carpool last Friday on the way home. So they're thinking that this guy is him. And then they sealed
Mhm.
the deal whenever they dropped him off and he was really rude to the gym teacher about not being late. They're like, okay, this guy's a jerk too. It's probably him.
Yeah.
So
Well, then it
they're
becomes
there.
time for Sean and Gus to do the class,
Yes.
and they're getting some advice first.
Yes, another one of these little weird things that I just always remember, like the geniuses in the mix.
Mhm.
The kids are giving them advice, and they're just like essentially taking turns firing off like tips. And one of them is, "Don't dangle your participles." And Gus comes in casually, at least not in public, and that gets me every time. And I'm not an English major, so I forgot what that was. A participle is a verb acting as an adjective. Um, so do with that as you will.
Well, they go in and teach the class, and I love how the writers worked this in so beautifully that one of the kids, Sean's doing his like, his thing, sort of summing up all these kids and trying to look impressive. And the one kid goes, "That doesn't mean you're a psychic. Maybe you're just hyper observant." It was beautifully worked in
Yeah.
because you wonder why have the adults not questioned this yet. But I
Hmm.
mean, it is what it is. We're glad that they're not questioning because we wouldn't have a show if they were. But it was just beautifully done.
Yep.
So,
But his whole thing when he walks in to do his presentation, he like writes on the board physics, which
phys psych phys psychics.
during that scene where the kid points him out, like you were talking about, and says like you could just be hyper observant.
Mhm.
Um, he does another cold reading on another student. And that student challenges him. And he's like, "How about a real test? How about I write the answer on the board and you tell me what the question is?" And, Sean, for some reason, was like super amped on this idea that
Mhm.
these kid full of like geniuses aren't going to be able to stump him, and he
Because
did.
he thought Gus would be able to answer it.
That's
He
true. Actually, yeah,
immediately
he does
looked
look
at
at him.
Gus, and Gus
Yep.
is like, "I don't know."
So this is the part where I was excited because I knew what it was right away. I was super excited that I knew the answer,
Yeah, I
and
had no
neither of
idea.
them
Let me just
did.
add, no
So
idea.
he just wrote on the board 6.0221415 by times 10 to the 23rd atoms per mole. And there's a couple numbers and like equations that I remember from math and science class in high school. One of them is Avogadro's number. Avogadro's number is defined as the number of elementary particles per mole of a substance. A mole is a unit of measurement for energy. So the number on the board, I did also notice when I was trying to write it down, is it does change. So there was a little inconsistency that I had to call out too. It's like they had to erase it and redo the scene, or somebody erased it for some reason. So it does like change the two. Kind of looks like a 0 sometimes, and it switches back to a 2. But I thought that was cool. I was super excited.
I had
But yeah,
absolutely no idea what that was. And I'm honestly surprised that if you knew it, that Gus didn't.
yeah. I don't know. Gus probably did know it. Like
He's like,
Gus,
"I don't
his
know."
character probably would have known it, but they just went with something, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, I also remember the quadratic formula. That one was burned in my brain too.
Mhm.
Let's see. Let's see here. Also in this scene, we get to see Han. So Han, we find out that Sean kind of gave Han an invite because he wanted to be able to, what is it? Question him.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's another word for it. He wanted to be able to talk to Han in a public place, and he was kind of curious at how this would have gone if the student, or I'm kind of curious how this scene would have happened or would have gone if Sean didn't kick the other student out. Because the other student is, later on we find out, has like more to do with it. But I'm curious if the questions he asked Han here, if the other student heard them and heard the details that he was saying, if we would have gotten some reaction from him. It could
Hmm.
have been like a completely different ending to the episode. So
It was a
that is one
pivotal
thing I would
moment.
love to have known. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, he doesn't really get anything from Han. Han kind of just blows off all the questions and just
Well, he
kind of.
finds out that he's planning a party for somebody or a surprise.
Yeah, if
Okay,
that's
yeah.
even true. I don't know. He might have just been going along with it. But a little bit later in the next scene, we're at 21 minutes in. Jules is using her new powers to give Lassie orders. He is a bit torn. He doesn't like being ordered around, but he also seems very proud of Juliet for like taking charge and doing what needs to
Yes.
be done.
He
She
is
was essentially
very
telling him
he's
to look through like 50 case files for any kind of connections to their current case, which is a nightmare.
yeah, the look that he gives her after, like, she brings over all those files, and when she walks away, you kinda see that on his face, like, "Huh, look at her go," you know?
Yeah.
She's making him proud. She's doing what he would have done.
Because I mean, he also challenges her a few times in the episode too.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's later on. The phone call thing happens later on, though.
Yeah.
We're back to inside of the lecture with
Mhm.
Sean and Gus, and Sean makes the kids call him Sensei, and the kid that calls him Sensei is very clearly just humoring him. And I just think it's so funny how excited Sean is for someone to address him as Sensei.
Mhm.
And the kids, Sean makes some comment about like I have an extra kernel of like psychic power, and it's kind of similar to that feeling that you get when you like have a song playing in your head and it's the next one on the radio, or knowing when it's right to kiss a girl, and that gets a bunch of people's attention
Mhm.
because the first question they ask is, the kid wants to know how to harness this physicics. Am I saying it
Phys
right?
psychics.
Physics.
Psychics.
Sure. He wants to
Like
know how to
physics
harness
and
that
psychics
ability.
together,
I
psychics.
understand that, I just can't say it.
Okay.
He wants to know how to use this ability
Mhm.
to know when to kiss girls. And Gus calls him out. He's like, "Ready? Tag me in. Tag me in." and he really wants this moment for some reason. I'm not sure why he cares so much.
Because I think he probably thinks that Sean has the whole fake psychic thing going on. What does he have? He's got the ladies. You know what I mean? Like
But
let him have
does
his
he?
way. I don't think he does, but I think he thinks he does. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
maybe.
He's, with the nose, he did the thing with his thumb on his nose and like I
Yeah,
got this.
I love when he does that.
I know, right? It's like, yeah, I got this.
But when this scene is done, because it kind of just fades away after that scene, the two of them are walking through the school and they run into another one of the teachers. And it's one of the teachers that does the like entrance exams and interviews. And Gus remembers him and he starts talking to him. And he mentions that the administrator guy, the teacher, mentions that he remembers Gus in his entrance interview, and he's very certain that he recommended um,
He
admittance.
recommended that Gus come to the school.
Right. He essentially
Right.
told him that he sent an offer.
But they don't know anything for sure yet. Like now they're having to go into like the records room of the school. And that's where Gus immediately, instead of looking for stuff about the case, he goes to the files
Going
to
fast.
find his file.
Well, in this scene, whenever he tells him that he's sure he recommended him, Gus is like, "Nope, I went to public school." And he's like, "Well, sure, surely someone like you ended up at like JPL or some other like large company." And he's like, "Well, actually, I ended up in pharmaceuticals." And I just thought it was really funny the subtle look of disappointment
Oh, it wasn't subtle.
on his face
It was like he
was
couldn't even be bothered by talking to him anymore when he found that out. He's like, "Okay."
yeah, it bordered on disgust.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and Gus is like, "Yeah, pharmaceuticals, healing people."
yeah,
And he
like
and he
healing
wasn't
people.
having it. He wasn't having it.
And then as soon as the teacher walks away, Gus or Sean comes up and he's like, "Dude, you didn't even mention Magic Head." I like there's a lot of like little good jokes here, but nothing like crazy this episode.
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay, so now they go into the records room. Well, Gus finds his file and sees on there that his parents actually said no. He was accepted, but his parents are the ones that denied him going there.
mhm.
And he's
Yep.
not happy. Like he is so focused on this. Sean finds some stuff out too. I'll let you address that in a second,
No,
but
he's like questioning life. Yeah, like he's like, "Wait,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
crossroads, like how different would my life have been?"
And why would they do that to me? He
Yeah.
starts calling them and like it's just a whole thing. They're not taking his calls. He's distraught even into the next scene when they're in the car. Like he
Mhm.
can't he's just mad and wants to know why.
Yeah, he doesn't really care about the other stuff anymore. He's really
Right.
focused.
Right.
But while he's looking at his record, Sean is looking through at Han's record. And one thing they find out that's kind of integral here is they find a motive for Han. There was an incident a couple years back between Han and another student, and the student accused Han of blackmailing him for his scholarship money. And they ended up not believing the kid, and the kid was expelled. But they think that maybe Han is a blackmailer, and maybe he tried to do it again, but this time he threatened the wrong person. So now they've got motive.
Right. So now it's Gus's turn to drive carpool. So they're in the Blueberry and they're headed to Han's house. As soon as they pull up, they see that there's been an explosion at the house. And we find out from the firefighters that actually Lassie delivers the news, but that the coffee pot was the source of the fire. But the guys know that that's not true because the kids have already told them that he gets espresso in the morning from school. So they're thinking he wouldn't have been using his coffee maker. So they know something else is going on there. It's not good information. They know somebody did it, that it wasn't just an accident. They
Yep.
also find out in that scene at Han's house that he was broke, that his house was going into foreclosure.
And that the
So,
due date was on murder day, the day that the kids heard the guy say that the murder might go down, like the 2 day
okay.
mark. So
Mhm.
they did see that that was more of a reason why that day was the day.
In the next scene, we're at 30 minutes, 24 seconds here. We're back at the stations, Lassie and Jules. And I'm just aggravated here because Lassie, like they have the boys there that originally told them what they heard. And Shockley and Goddard. Anyway, Lassie wants to take the case back from Jules now. He wants to take point. And that part made me mad. I was like, you can't do that. Like, don't do that. She didn't back down, thankfully. But then we find out that he wanted the case back because he's never worked one that had an explosion.
Yeah.
He wanted an explosion case. Like, no, Lassie.
I mean,
No, don't
I
be a
get it.
jerk.
I get it.
No, it was a jerk. And he got so mad in there. The kids were coming at Lassie so hard with these comments.
Hmm.
And he attacked poor McNabb.
Yes, and I love that
Oh,
because not because I know I felt bad for McNabb, but I thought it was funny because Sage Brocklebank is
he's
huge.
yeah.
He's like, what is he, like 6'5" or something,
Like
6'4"?
6'4". I think he's
And he's
6'4".
also like, he's like a pretty built guy.
Yeah.
He's not some like lanky dude. And he's much taller than Lassie. And
Yeah.
Lassie just kind of manhandles him, but he seems completely unfazed. He's like, "Here's your coffee." And he's just kind of standing there, and Lassie's kind of like pushing him up against the wall all like aggressively, and he's just kind of like,
Yeah.
"What's going on?"
Yeah, McNabb
I love
totally could
that.
have taken him right there. I
It stays
mean,
true to what like Sage was talking about with him being like this
yes.
Mormon type character. That's
Yes,
how he
so
kind of imagined
sweet.
him. So yeah,
Yeah.
like very gentle, like gentle giant.
Mhm.
So yeah, I did like that, and it immediately made me think about it.
So they essentially get the same information from the kids that they already know. Nothing, I don't think, spectacular is revealed there in that scene.
Mm.
And we're now at Henry's house. So I'm sorry, Sean and Gus have taken Shockley and Goddard to Henry's house. And they're like making sandwiches and using his computer. 32 minutes, 54 seconds. There's the pineapple sighting. There are 2 pineapple cups on the bar, on Henry's bar behind the kids.
I
So
missed it completely.
this is the first time in, I think, like since the beginning of season 1 that I have found the pineapple. I'm so excited about this. Like, I never find the stupid pineapple, and
Mhm.
I found it in this episode. I was so excited. Anyway, so that was at 32:54, and the kids also make like, they're making fun of the computer about Colecovision and stuff. We'll talk more about that later. But they also come across a photo of the kid that Sean sent to the principal's office, Kirk. And oddly enough, this photo that they find was taken 15 years ago.
Yeah,
So
but the kid looks exactly the same.
there's no way this kid's looking. We know something's going on there. So,
Mhm.
yeah. We also go back to the station at 33 minutes, 50 seconds, and Sean kind of guides Jules to the Kirk information. And then there's the Muriel newsletter, which that refers back to the first clue that they had about Muriel. And this kid was supposed to be dead. So there's a lot there
They're
that he
confused.
reveals.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, the kid isn't the kid is in a picture from 15 years ago, and the person attached to his name is dead. So they're starting to form, piece together a story here.
Right.
I did like in this scene, at 34 minutes in, they have their little thing where they're reading the paper, and he's like, Goodle," and he's like, it has the omelet over it, so it's like it's the O's, and then Jules like, I'm pretty sure it's an umlaut, and then he's like, I've heard it both ways, so we hadn't ever heard it both ways this episode. Sure,
No,
it's
that
an
was good
umlaut.
though.
It's like it's got an omelet over it.
We go back to the school and they're back in the classroom at 37:25, and this is where the case starts to break down. Like Sean's given his summary. They find out that this kid stole Kirk's identity. He was killed in an accident. He stole his identity in order to go to the school because he had this history in juvie and would never have gotten in. And it's a whole thing. So they figure that out. Han figured that out before they did. And because Han figured it out, this kid killed Han. Well, I say kid, but he really wasn't a kid. We find out that he's just been wearing makeup and doing what he can to make himself still look that young. And in this scene when they, find him, Lassie lets Jules use his handcuffs and tells her in that moment to forget all the lessons and just know that she's a good cop. And I thought that was cool, but in that same moment also, this is where you get Jules looking over at Sean and she mouths the words "thank you." And then he gives her like the little nod. I love those interactions
Hey,
so
even
much.
even I think that's a feel good moment. That was good. Yeah.
Yes, it was so
Mhm.
sweet. It was like, you did this, you got me to this point, and I thank you for it. It was just sweet. Well, yeah. Sean would do anything for her. I love it. It's very sweet. Anyway, they end the show with Sean and Henry playing chess as adults. Sean has gotten this really cool chessboard to um to give Henry, and they're playing again, and Sean of course wins again. Thought that was a cool way. They sort of bookended this episode. I like when they're bookended.
Yeah,
When
with chess and chess, or with
Yeah.
whatever's in the beginning. Mm.
Yeah, or like, just
Like a
the
young
interaction
version
with
of chess, an
Henry.
old version of chess.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
love
there
that.
was a cool little meta thing here too,
Mhm.
because Henry says like, I'm shocked that like he was able to pass him off as a teenager,
Uh-huh.
and Sean's like, I don't know, Dad, slap a wig on you, and you're a spitting image of yourself when I was a kid. Nice little meta moment because that's exactly what they do with him in the beginning
Yep.
scenes, the openers.
Yep.
I also think it's funny that so in this chess game they started a new game and he's like, you know what? I'll bet you this. If you win, you can have the truck for a week. If you lose, you wash the truck for a week. And Sean has this like smart aleck moment where he's like, I don't know what that means. I'm out there in a pair of jean shorts continuously washing the truck.
Oh,
And Henry's like, shut up and play. Focus on the game.
I love, and I almost forgot
I love that.
how like in the background Gus is on the phone with his parents.
Yeah, and Gus is talking to his mom. They've been calling all day and ignoring his calls, and then I guess they answered, and they're essentially you only hear Gus's end of the conversation, but he's in there like, "You derailed my future because Dad hates curvy roads. What? I've never been a
Never been
motion
car sick
sick
a
a
day
day
in
in
my
my
life.
life." It is really funny, and it's even funnier once we actually kind of meet Gus's parents and like the actors. Because I don't know, I guess I'm able to visualize them and how they talk, and I could
Yes,
totally see it, especially with his dad.
I get that too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I get that too.
So, yeah.
All right, Matt, tell us your feelings about this episode. How many pineapples do you give it?
So this episode is kind of weird because I have fond memories of it. Like even last week, I think at the end of the last episode, I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm looking forward to this one." When I actually watch it, I thought I was gonna give it 4 stars. Then I watched it and I was like, nothing super big actually like happens here. So I'm gonna give it 3 pineapples. I think it's kind of something I mentioned before, how I like the energy, like because it's new. There's a bunch of kids in this one, and they're all really smart. And
Mhm.
you also get some character development with Gus and some of his backstory with growing up. He wanted to go to this school. You get to know a little bit about his parents, and you also get to see Juliet grow some too. So I like that.
Yeah, we feel a little bit similar, but I think you were generous. I'm going with 2 pineapples for this episode,
I don't
which
know.
is
There was some funny parts. There was some funny parts.
not
It wasn't like
okay.
devoid of
There
comedy.
was All right, there was at no point. I normally at
Tons of
some
references.
point, yeah, but normally at some point in the episode, I'm pausing it and laughing.
Hmm.
I just
Yeah.
cruised through this one. Things were like, but
Yeah.
nothing was so hysterical. So not great for me. It was not an exciting episode. I didn't love the mystery part about it.
Mhm.
Nothing was hysterical for me. I did like that there were a bunch of 80s references, but nothing was outstanding about this episode. So this one, like I remember it being better than it was. And it just was a disappointment for me in season 2. Like a season 2 holds a place in my heart, and this one just did not. live up to season 2 for me. So I'm going with 2 pineapples.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
Did you have an "ah, yeah" moment?
I know maybe part of the reason I liked it was because I had that exciting moment in the middle where I remembered that number. It's like the only thing from chemistry
Yeah.
that I remember, but maybe I don't know,
Well,
maybe
maybe
that
it was
added to
just
it.
some
I don't know.
nostalgia
Just
for you.
excited. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's true.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I don't know. What was your "ah, yeah" moment?
I when I remembered Avogadros,
That
I,
makes sense. Okay, I get it. I get that.
I don't know. Yeah, like I said, there wasn't anything huge. Um,
I have to say, Matt, if I
yeah.
remembered something like that, I'd be pretty proud of it too, I'm just saying. 'Cause I don't know it.
I'm just waiting for that quadratic formula to pop up now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah.
I didn't have one. I didn't have
Yeah.
an "ah, yeah"
I
moment.
didn't really have one either. Yeah.
Well, what about a "come on, son"?
Mm,
I actually have 2 of those.
maybe when Lassiter is kind of like mean to Sage, maybe, but
I
not
have
really.
2. My first one was with when Gus finds out that he was accepted but didn't get to go.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
And also when Lassie wants to take the case back from Jules. That one just pissed me off. Like, that made me mad. I was like,
Yeah.
"Really?
That's a.
Really? Don't be
He
such
was
a
nice
jerk,
about it
man."
though. He was nice about it though.
No, he was being a jerk about it. I don't know. Did you have a wait for it?
Um. I
No? I didn't either,
like
don't feel bad.
maybe whenever they see the picture, like in the yearbook, like he's 15, like, wait, what? He's this 15 years old. He looks exactly the same. Maybe something like that. Let's see. So Henry's lesson. Did we have any? I
Henry's
don't think
lessons,
we
I don't
really had
think
one.
they're well, okay, so maybe his lesson was that you have to think strategically. That's the only I mean, and I'm kind of
I
reaching a little
guess, but that
bit,
I don't
but
know. I feel like yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of a reach.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I recognize that that's reaching. I just,
mm,
typically there's something that comes from their interactions. That's the only thing that I got this time.
yeah,
They didn't go to Henry for any help with the case. It wasn't anything like that.
yeah.
So, but there were other lessons.
Hmm. Yeah, there was a lot of lessons. We kind of went over them already, but Lassiter had a bunch of lessons.
Mhm.
Lesson one, there are no small cases, only small detectives. Lessons two, cops don't wait in line, they go straight to the front, even at Starbucks. Lesson three, oh, lesson two. Lesson two, at first I thought, like, well, that's kind of rude. But then I'm like, you know what? Like, waiting in line is a waste of time for
Right, and
people
we're
that could
paying
be
them.
saving people. And yeah, they're also
Exactly.
being paid by the hour. So
Like
I guess I don't really have too much of a problem as long as there's not like 20 cops coming in.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. Once I thought about it more, I was like, you know what? I guess I could. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Lesson number three: don't say please, don't say thank you, and definitely don't say hi. Lesson four: don't quote corn pone country bumpkin sayings to your commanding officer, such as "you catch more flies with honey." And lesson 63: do not apologize to the perp. Kind of skipped over a couple.
Mhm.
And one last lesson: forget all the other lessons and know that you are a good cop.
That's my
So,
favorite one.
yeah. All right, Barb, you're
All
up.
right. Are we ready for some 80s references? Here we
I
go.
notated some, so if you miss one, I'm gonna jump in.
Please do, and also add to them if you have some other information that I don't put in here.
I might have one or 2. Mhm. Okay, go
All
ahead.
right, let's start off with B.A. Baracus. This is a reference to the A Team. It's an hour-long TV show that ran from 1983 to 1987. Mr. T played B.A. Baracus, and the show was about 4 Vietnam vets on the run after being framed for a crime they did not commit, and they're helping other people that are innocent out along the way. We next have a Dirty Dancing reference. This was a, still popular classic movie from 1987 starring Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey. And Sean references to the quote here, "Nobody puts baby in a corner."
Hmm.
Very popular quote from that movie. Moving on, 21 Jump Street. This was another drama hour-long TV show that ran from 1987 to 1991. And it was young-looking adults go undercover in a high school to reveal youth crimes. It starred Johnny Depp, who is a huge star, probably needs no explanation here. but was in Pirates of the Caribbean, Sweeney Todd, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and pretty much anything made by Tim Burton.
It reminds me of
Uh,
22 Jump Street. In 22 Jump Street, whenever James Franco's character is like, and this guy over here looks like a 40-year-old man when he's pointing at Channing Tatum. They got super meta because I don't think Johnny Depp looked like he was in high school either.
well, he
It's
did at the
weird.
time, though. No, when the show was on, he wasn't that old, and he
Was
really
it?
did look that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I
I know
remember.
nowadays it's like
Yeah,
every time they don't look like a students at all. Like that show Cobra Kai, like a lot of them, they don't look like high schoolers for the most part.
yeah. But I gotta say, when this show was on,
She's
okay,
all or he's all that dumb
yeah,
remake they did.
I graduated high school in 1991. And as a teenager at the time, that show really they looked young enough. To me, they did anyway.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway,
Sorry, I
all right.
interrupted. It just
Yeah,
really that
no,
popped
that's
right in my
okay. That's
head. I was
okay.
like a
They also
40-year-old man.
reference Holly Robinson here, who is now Holly Robinson Pete. She went on to star in Hanging with Mr. Cooper, Mike and Molly, Chicago Fire, and my favorite, Hallmark movies. She's in several of the Evergreen Christmas and Evergreen movies. She has her own mystery series, morning show mysteries on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. She's gone on to do a lot of cool stuff. Richard Graco, who was also on 21 Jump Street, he was kind of an 80s bad boy. Tons of guest spots in the 80s and 90s. He was in a few episodes of Veronica Mars and, of course, the 21 Jump Street movie. Richard Rountree is referenced next. He is an actor best known for his role in the original Shaft movie in 1971, as well as the TV series of the same name that ran from 1973 to 1974. He was also in an episode of 21 Jump Street. He did guest spots on MacGyver, LA Law, Hanging with Mr. Cooper. He was in the movie Seven. That freaked me out completely. Fresh Prince, and more recently, like Desperate Housewives, Heroes, and Chicago Fire. So he's done a lot of TV work. There is a reference to Doogie, which is Doogie Howser, MD, played by Neil Patrick Harris, and he played a teenage doctor. This ran from 1989 to 1993. There was a
I had
loose
one.
reference.
I
Oh, you
have
do?
one you missed.
Okay.
They
Okay.
reference Nightbreed, and this is like at the
Oh,
beginning,
okay.
7 minutes 50 seconds in. Sean compares his like one of their old teachers. He said she was a Nightbreed. Nightbreed is a 1990s American dark fantasy horror film written and directed by Clive Barker, based on his 1988 novel Cabal. The film
Oh,
follows an unstable mental patient named Aaron Boone, who is falsely led to believe his doctor that he is a serial killer. Uh, by his doctor that he is a serial killer.
hmm.
Essentially, it ends up he gets to an abandoned cemetery called Midian among a tribe of monsters and outcasts known as the Nightbreed, who hide from humanity. And that
Hmm.
makes more sense whenever he compares his teacher to a Nightbreed and says that she lived in a cemetery. And yeah,
Excellent catch. I never even heard of Nightbreed, so an excellent
it's
catch.
a cult following now. Apparently that it
Mm.
did terrible because it was displayed as like a slasher horror movie, and it was not that at all. But it has a cult following.
Interesting.
I had to get mine in there.
Oh, well, yes, I'm glad you caught it. We next have a loose reference to the movie Can't Buy Me Love. This is where Sean talks about the guy on the lawnmower, and you're dating my ex or something, and then I play the guy on the lawnmower. That is in reference to Can't Buy Me Love. It was a teen movie from 1987 starring McDreamy himself, Patrick Dempsey. He uses his money from mowing lawns to pay a girl that he likes to make him popular, and they kind of fall for each other in the process. Next, we talk about C. Everett Koop, which you've already gone over, previous Surgeon General. There's a reference to Smells Like Teen Spirit, which was a 1991 huge hit by Nirvana. Lassie, the TV series, and Lassie 3 is referenced. Lassie being the smart collie. Right, the original TV show ran in 1954. They have done a lot of reiterations of it over the years. There's another Breakfast Club reference that we kind of talked about the custodian being the eyes and ears of the school. That was like best 80s movie ever, hands down. 1985, starring Judd Nelson, Ali Sheedy, Emilio Estevez, Anthony Michael Hall, and Molly Ringwald. And as a side note, all but Emilio guest starred on Psych at one point. Love that. The next reference is to Jake and the Fat Man. This was an hour-long drama from 1987 to 1992 about a former DA and his private investigator friend solving cases. It starred William Conrad and Joe Penny. Then there's a reference to the Right Said Fred song, I'm Too Sexy. Right Said Fred was an English band from London. They released I'm Too Sexy in 1991, and it has been used in so many films and TV shows. That song has 74 credits on IMDb. It is very used. Kadeem Hardison is also referenced here. He played a character named Dwayne Wayne on A Different World. This was a Cosby Show spinoff where Cosby's daughter, Lisa Bonet's character Denise, goes off to Hillman College. It aired from 1987 to 1993, and he was known for wearing the little flip-up sunglasses that were popular at the time. There's a reference next to Colecovision, which was a second-generation home video game console launched in North America in 1982. It was the first home of Donkey Kong, by the way. And the last couple of references all sort of work around an actor named Kirk Douglas. When Sean is trying to get Jules to go to the name Kirk, he references A Man from Snowy River, which was a Western film from 1982. In Eddie Macon's Run, which was a movie in 1983 about an escaped convict fleeing Texas to get to Mexico. And Spartacus, which was a huge Kirk Douglas movie in 1960. He's maybe best known for that role, actually, and it was a story about the Romans. But all of those three starred Kirk Douglas. He's a 3-time Oscar-nominated actor who worked from 1946 to 2008. He's kind of Hollywood royalty, the father of Michael Douglas. He lived to be 103 years old. He just passed away in February of 2020. And there you have it. We did talk about where the pineapple was at 33 minutes, 39 seconds. And there are the pineapple cups on Henry's bar. I don't think there were any silly Gus nicknames in this episode. Did you catch any?
Nope. Nothing for Gus this time. And I didn't really have any favorite quotes. There wasn't really anything, I guess. There's a few funny statements they said, but I didn't really catch any quotes.
Which leads us into, how does this episode hold up over time for you?
I mean, I guess it holds up pretty well.
I just didn't love it. I just was really disappointed by it, to be honest with you.
No, I get that.
Honestly, I was disappointed. But anyway, so that is it for this episode. We're always interested in hearing your thoughts. On the next episode, we will be discussing season 2, episode 8, called Rob-a-Bye Baby.
I don't even know if I remember that one offhand.
Isn't it the one where the chiefs, they hire the nanny with the chief?
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Make sure you check us out on our Facebook group, We Know You Know ... a podcast about Psych, as well as our Reddit group, The Psych Podcast. We have links to all of it below in the comments, whether you're on YouTube or on one of the streaming sites for audio.
You can also find us on Instagram at The Psych Podcast.
And if you did have any questions or any comments that you didn't want to post just on one of our pages, you can email us, thepsychpodcast@gmail.com.
Until next week, guys, thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week. Have a great week.
See you next week.